Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to today's expert webinar series presentation, Marketing Your Firm's Services in Uncertain Times. It is going to be presented today by Div Bhansali, and he is the Vice President of Marketing here at Accountants World. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Thomas Provine. I'm a Marketing Coordinator here at Accountants World, and it's great to have everybody here. As usual, we'll go through our GoToWebinar tips. We'd like for you to use the orange arrow to expand and hide the GoToWebinar control panel. You can toggle through your audio options and expand the audio section to choose telephone, speakers, or click the phone icon. And if you have any questions today, whether they be technical questions regarding GoToWebinar or any questions regarding the material that Div's going to be presenting today, we highly encourage you to ask those in the questions tab, and we will answer questions both during and at the end of today's webinar presentation. We will be offering one CPE for today's webinar. What are the things that you need to do in order to get CPE credit? You need to attend this live webinar for no less than 50 minutes. Respond to all of its polling questions. We have 4 polling questions today, and submit the post-webinar survey within 24 hours after the webinar has ended. How will you receive your CPE? Well, you'll be notified within 3 business days. It is going to take us a little while to get the CPE credit done. Just bear with us, and we're going to make sure that that is sent to you within 3 business days. And just make sure you add webinar at accountantsworld.com to your trusted email list. That is where we will be sending the CPE credit from. Another thing I've been telling presenters throughout this year during our expert webinar series, or attendees rather, I've been telling attendees, has been to exit out of the full screen presentation when we are asking the CPE questions. There's a little bit of a glitch that we've seen in GoToWebinar this year, where if you are in full screen and try to answer the questions, you aren't able to. So when the question pops up, just exit out of the full screen presentation, click on your desired answer, submit it, and we then go back into full screen presentation. It's just a glitch in GoToWebinar that we've seen this year, and we want to make sure that all of those poll question answers are counted, both for CPE credit and both for the webinar's purposes. We'd like to present a webinar to everyone that's going to be taking place on Wednesday, November 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It is titled Packaging and Presenting CAS to Your Clients. A good friend of ours, Stephen Brewer, who is a CPA, will be talking about how to present and package CAS services to your clients that can help them better your practices and help increase profits on your end as well. Stephen is a dynamic presenter, and Div, who will be giving an expert webinar series presentation today, will be moderating that presentation. So it's looking to be something that's going to be invaluable for all of the attendees involved. So if you are interested in taking part in this, we can get you registered for this webinar. So I'm going to ask the first poll question, and that poll question is, sign me up for presenting and packaging CAS to your clients. All right, and we're just going to wait for those votes to tabulate. And we have done a run through of this presentation on our end here at Accountants World, and it's a dynamic presentation, and we think that everybody will be very much better for it. Stephen's just a terrific presenter, and he presents the information in such a way that is both interesting and intriguing for all of the attendees involved. So with that, we are seeing about 85% of people have voted here. All right, we won't have about 45 seconds here. We're just going to leave this poll open just for a touch longer. All right, everyone. I see it going once, going twice. I'm just getting a couple more votes in here. All right, we're just about 90% people have voted, so going once, going twice, all right, and we will close those results. So thank you everybody for answering that. And Now it is time to give a little bit of a biography about Div Bhansali. He is the Vice President of Marketing here at Accountants World. He is also a former Director of Marketing at AOL and Advertising.com. In addition to that, he's also the adjunct faculty at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So don't come to him with any Duke basketball takes. I just don't think that you would enjoy that very much. He's a great presenter and a great boss, and we're happy to have him come on. Div, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
Doing wonderful.
Good. All right, if you want to send the presenter over to my slide, great. Tom, are you seeing my screen now?
Yep, Div, we see your screen.
Okay, great. All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Tom gave a brief bio about me. Most of this has been covered at this point. Head of marketing at Accountants World. We are a leader in cloud-based software for public accounting firms, primarily focusing on client accounting and payroll services. So we offer software for both accounting and payroll, as well as document management and after-the-fact payroll. So if you'd like to learn more about us, accountantsworld.com at any time. You can also ask questions at the end of today's presentation. Part-time lecturer at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, go Heels. I've been a marketing and growth consultant for businesses ranging from one-person businesses up to much larger organizations as well. And perhaps most importantly, I'm a husband and father of those two over there, who are now 9 and 4 years old and absolutely run my household, as you guys can probably imagine. So let's go ahead and get started here a little bit. I want to start with a poll question. So Tom, if you don't mind bringing the second poll question up, I want to just understand a little bit more about the role that you play in terms of marketing within your organization. So whether it's a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or larger organization, I would like to understand a little bit more before we get into this about what your perspective is on marketing.
No worries, Div. So let's ask that poll question right now and launch it. So it reads, my main marketing goal is to make decisions, execute our marketing, support our efforts, or a bit of everything. So we are looking for that answer there. All right, and just a reminder to folks that today's poll questions are required for CPE credit, and if you're having issues answering, just exit out of the full screen presentation in GoToWebinar. All right. And Div, just knowing from our marketing efforts here at Accountants World, I could say that we kind of do a little bit of everything too. It isn't just one focus. And would you think that that's the same for other accounting firms and any business for that matter?
Generally speaking, the smaller the organization, the more likely it is that someone is going to be wearing multiple hats in terms of both planning and executing marketing and thinking about it as well. So I'm not surprised by the results that we're seeing so far.
Okay. All right, we have about 89% have voted. We're just going to wait just a couple more seconds here for everybody to get their vote in, and then we will share those responses here. All righty. It looks like we're getting up on about 1.5 minutes here, so we're going to say going once, going twice, 3 times, and we'll close and share those, Div. All right, so it looks to be about 66% said a little bit of everything, which is about what I expected. 17% said make decisions, 12% said support our efforts, and 5% said just execute our marketing.
Great. So for the folks who said a bit of everything, that lines up really well with my presentation today. We'll be talking at a high level about what marketing is at this point and strategizing for it, but then also some tactical details as well. So that's perfect with that. Thank you, Tom, for taking us through that. So I want to start with just a brief sort of setting of expectations about what marketing is not and what marketing is in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. So as a marketing consultant, when I meet with a new client or new prospective client, the most common question or concern that I hear is, what do I need to do about my social media? Do I need to do something about my social media? Do I need to change it? Should I hire a social media consultant, and so on? But it's really important to remember that social media and the metrics that we use to measure it in terms of followers and likes and influencers and so on, social media is a tool. It's not a strategy, right? So in the same way that the tax software that you use or the accounting software that you use is a tool, right? But it doesn't guide your strategy. It doesn't guide what you're doing vis-a-vis your clients. It doesn't guide how you're managing your practice. It's a tool that helps you to execute that. That's the same way that I want you to think about social media as well, right? So let's not put the cart before the horse there. Same thing with public relations. We tend to get impressed when we see an organization getting exposure. So if we're at an accounting firm and we see somebody else in our town getting exposure that we haven't gotten, we think, boy, they're fortunate to have gotten that. I wish I had gotten that as well, right? I'm sure that's going to help their business. And sure, in general, exposure is better than not getting exposure. But that's not always true, right? Negative exposure or even neutral exposure actually has more of a detrimental effect today than it ever has in the past, because everything is visible to everyone at this point. It's very hard to keep secrets in terms of how you're perceived by your target audience. And again, public relations is the outcome, not the strategy to get there. The last thing I'll mention is there's been a trend over the past 15 to 20 years, and especially in the past few years, to really think of marketing as a quantitative exercise. You try some things, you look at the numbers, you see how it performed, and then you sort of tweak it from there. And I can tell you as a marketer and as the leader of a marketing team, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, and that's what my team spends a lot of our time doing. But that's, again, still not quite starting at the highest enough level of what it is we're trying to achieve. So if we're thinking about it in terms of the goal, right, rather than the steps that we take to get there, I think we can do a little bit better than thinking about marketing in the ways that people most often tend to talk about them. So here's what I propose in terms of how we should think about it. You can think about marketing as sitting alongside two different elements. One is everything that your firm has to offer. And we're going to talk in a couple of minutes more about what exactly we mean by everything that your firm has to offer, because I think you're probably underselling yourself in terms of your offerings. You know, when professional accountants or professional services folks of any stripe tend to think about their quote unquote offerings, they think about direct services that they can charge for, and they think about direct products that they can charge for. And we're going to expand the scope of that a little bit, because that is going to make your marketing more powerful. The flip side of it is everything that your target audience wants and needs. Now, first of all, we've got to figure out who our target audience is, right? Because the answer is not everybody. There is no organization out there that does better at marketing because they try to go after everybody. In fact, that is almost always a losing strategy, right? You want to be crystal clear in who it is that you're going after. That might be defined by geography, right? People in our city or our region or our state. It might be defined by certain industries that your small business clients tend to be in, and you can extend that beyond geography. It might be based around certain types of intent, that it's companies of a certain size who are looking for specific goals to be met, and you're the right organization to help them to do that, right? I was just talking to an accountant a few weeks ago. For the first few years, his entire focus was on startups and getting them off the ground and beginning to build his business as they built their businesses as well, right? So that's a clear target audience definition there. Eventually, he expanded to have other target audiences as well. But you know, most of us tend to start our organizations with one and then eventually grow out from there. So when we think about everything that our target audience wants and needs, if you picture yourself having that initial consultation with a client or a prospective client, everything that they're saying to you, you're not only listening to those words, but you're also interpreting those to figure out what's the real ask here. What is it that this person really needs my help with, right? And one way to think about marketing is it's the bridge between those two things. It is the way of communicating the connection between everything that your firm has to offer and everything that your target audience wants and needs, right? Now, one of the things that that brings up is when that connection is tenuous at best or potentially even non-existent, if what you have to offer doesn't meet a prospective client's needs, no amount of marketing is going to solve that problem, right? I can't market my way out of a mismatch between customer expectations and our firm's offerings. So that, I think, spotlights even more the importance of making sure that you clearly define your target audience and there's a clear way for you to connect directly to them in hopefully a unique way, in a way that separates you from anybody else. So I want to talk a little bit about what we've seen on within accounting. We did a survey here at Accountants World back in April and May, and we asked a number of questions to professional accountants at that time. And one of the questions was, what is your firm's current primary focus? And not surprisingly at that time, the number one response that we had, and respondents were able to select more than one option here. The number one option was helping clients to navigate through the new normal, right? Not surprising at all. In some cases, that navigation meant, how do we help you survive? In some cases, that meant, how do we make sure that you're still able to staff properly? You had growth goals for this year. What can we do to try to protect those? What can we do for your employees, and so on? Helping out with PPE and all the other assistance that was available as well. That was a common sort of example of that as well. Number two was optimizing efficiency, which made sense with firms having more questions around their ability to hit their targets in terms of revenue as well. And then lower was upgrading technologies and solutions, cutting costs, and then investing for future growth. Another question that we asked is, what's the outlook for your clients for the rest of 2020? And not surprisingly, very few were saying significantly better than anticipated before the crisis hit, right? It tended to be going on the side of things are going to be worse than we expected. Now, this wasn't, and I'm sure many of you experienced this didn't mean doom and gloom for all clients, but it meant that there was a checking of expectations and a recalibration of what was possible at that time. And so if we're recalibrating what both our firm can achieve and what our clients can achieve, that's going to impact what our clients and prospects expect from us in terms of messaging and marketing as well. So if we fast forward since then, and we think about what's changed after that initial crisis hit, a couple of things have changed. One is, I think there's more solidity in the projections for many individual businesses, right? So many small businesses in particular have more clarity at this point in terms of, number one, did they make it through this or not, right? Did they survive? And number two, if they did survive, what does the near-term future look like for them, right? And chances are you have been a part of helping them to get that crystallized definition in place. There's also a better understanding on, I think, most of our parts of how to cope both professionally and personally on a day-to-day basis, right? So from the complete chaos that you may have experienced for 15 days, 30, 60 days, maybe even more than that, most of us have now begun to establish a pattern, both professionally and personally, of what our lives look like for the time being. And for some of us, those lives, professional and personal, may be pretty similar to what we had pre-March. In some cases, they may be different. I know many of you are still working from home, either all the time or part of the time. Many of you have employees who have had to cut back hours or move to being remote, or have expressed health concerns, and you've had to work with them to address those. So there's been some level of understanding of how do we manage the situation that we're in right now, and to the extent that we can look out and project into the future, how do we manage what's coming up next as well? Now, what hasn't changed yet is the overall uncertainty in our business sector and in the nation as a whole, right? So just looking at recent articles in Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and Bloomberg, all of them were talking about the continuing high rate of ambiguity about the business outlook over the next quarter and over the next year. there was an expectation by some people that by this point we would have a better idea of what was coming up. And it turns out that we're facing more uncertainty at this point than we probably anticipated having. So that's something that you're dealing with, your firm is dealing with, and your prospective clients are dealing with as well. And then, of course, no matter how much we've tried to cope and manage our organizations and our lives, there's still a heightened level of concern and anxiety levels as well. These are trends that are affecting everyone. It's interesting to note that these changes are affecting small business owners even more. And in fact, if we drill down even further than that, this was a poll that was done by Gallup, which talked about the percentage of small business owners who are experiencing daily worry and stress. This was actually broken down by gender. Even if you combine it across both genders, you're still going to see the same trend, which is small business owners have experienced a higher level of stress, higher level of worry. And in fact, their rates of increase in both stress and worry are higher than the national averages across the entire population. So not surprisingly, if you're somebody who is marketing to small business owners, part of what you're coming into is when you're establishing that first contact, when they contact you or you contact them, this is part of the playing field that you now have to be aware of. This is part of the environment that you have to be aware of there. So on that basis, I want to now go back to what I was talking about before, what you have to offer. We talked about marketing being connecting everything that you have to offer to everything that your target audience needs and wants. A simple way of thinking about what you as a professional have to offer, or what your firm has to offer, is your expertise, your time, and your network of colleagues and connections. If we think about the way that we bill, if we think about the way that we grow our revenue for our firm, if we think about why we hire people into our firm, right? It's typically to maximize our ability to deliver expertise, time, and our network of colleagues and connections, right? So if there's a problem that you're not able to address, you may know somebody else who can, and be able to refer to that person as well. So these are sort of at a high level, the things that we tend to think about that your firm has to offer. But I would say that that is only part of the picture. In reality, you can actually offer much more than that. You have the ability to offer knowledge and empowerment. Knowledge is power, right? We've all heard that saying. And the more knowledge you're providing to your small business clients as well as other clients, the more of a sense of empowerment that they're feeling out of it. You're providing them with comfort. And I think that's particularly important in times like this, along with alleviation of stress, right? So where you can bring clarity to their financial picture and perhaps some sense of reassurance for them, right? That obviously delivers quite a bit of comfort and alleviation of that stress that we just saw a slide back there. You're providing them with hope for future prospects. So it's one thing for a small business owner to be thinking about, okay, when we make it through whatever this is right now, here's what I have to look forward to in terms of my business in the future. Here's what I'm hoping I can deliver to my customers and to my employees looking into the future. But when you can crystallize that for them, when you can give them some tangible evidence of where they're able to get to, and some options for getting to that, right, that's enormously powerful. And then finally, you provide an advocate in difficult situations, right? A simple example of that would be work that's done in the tax and audit space, and serving as an advocate for them there. But in reality, whether you're in tax, audit, accounting work, bookkeeping, payroll, whatever it might be, you are serving as an advocate. You are helping to make sure that they're able to get through whatever their definition of a difficult situation might be. So these are permanent. This is your permanent list of what you have to offer, and I encourage you to go back and think about how this really relates to your firm, right? And are you doing a good enough job of communicating that full value when people first meet you, right? Are you communicating on your website all of the things that you have to offer, not just tactical service expertise, right? Are you communicating this in your initial sales conversation with someone? Are you communicating this during your consultations after your initial conversation? So I think that's an area where I would challenge you to consider ways in which you can be more pointed and more clearly defined. Now, looking at our current situation right now, there are a couple of more specifics on things that you have to offer them. One, and I read about this in an Accounting Today article, and this really got me thinking about the power of helping your clients to prioritize for success, right? So if you can help your client answer the question, is this the right time for me to focus on fine-tuning our budget? Is our cash flow looking like it's going to be dramatically different than expected? Are there upcoming tax issues that we're concerned about and that are on the business owner's mind, right? Are there things that we need to change about our operations during these crazy times? And if the answer to any of those questions is yes, the next question is, how much do we prioritize that? Is that a showstopper for your client? Is that something that they want you to go ahead and handle and they'll continue to do business as usual? Is it not that big a deal for them right now, right? You're not only able to help them answer the initial question, you're then able to help them prioritize what's really meaningful for their business moving forward. Secondly, a clear sense of best and worst case scenarios. Now, we all like to deliver good news to people who are paying us, right? It's a lot more fun than delivering the potential for bad news. So you might be wondering, why would you want to present the worst case scenario? Well, because stressed out clients will often be assuming something even worse than that, right? You all have experience with clients who are deeply unqualified in the field that you serve them in, right? That's why they hired you, because you are far more qualified and far more professional and patient and methodical in dealing with these issues than they are. And so giving them a sense of boundaries of here's what's possible on a positive side and potentially on a negative side from a threat perspective as you look to your business towards the future, again, can be very empowering for small business clients. Providing them with the right amount of structure. So as accountants, you know well the power of checklists, workflow applications, to-do lists, right? These are a common part of how you manage process, because managing process is such an essential part of how firms operate. Think about how many of your clients aren't as adept at those types of structure building. So perhaps one of the things that you have to offer right now is showing them how to build that sort of structure, not only in terms of the outputs that you provide to them, financial statements, returns, payroll, etc., but also in terms of their business as a whole, right? You've probably done a better job of organizing than many of your clients have, and this is an opportunity for you to provide that to them. And then finally, some boundaries for your clients so that they can take better care of themselves. One of the most assuring things that people can hear at any time, but especially right now when everyone is feeling overwhelmed, is you don't need to worry about this, I've got this, right? And so I think the ability to communicate that either literally or symbolically is very, very powerful. And I think this is something that marketing organizations in general tend to undersell. One of the most important reasons that we buy products or services is because that product or service will take care of something for us so that we don't have to put our limited brain power against it, right? And I encourage you to message that appropriately. Make sure that you're mentioning that where that's appropriate and in a way that's appropriate for your clients. Again, I'm not going to tell you what words to say to your clients. You know your clients and you know how to get that message across to them. But I think these are things that many firms, like many marketers of all types, tend to undersell in their marketing messaging. Last point I'll make on this before we move on to a little bit more of a tactical side. If your marketing messages to clients and prospects can communicate everything that you have to offer instead of just your functional or transactional expertise, you can build stronger long-term relationships than ever before. At a time when so many service-oriented businesses are thinking, how do I hold on to my clients? How do I maintain the relationship and level of value that I've provided to them in the past? What I would encourage you to do is to think in terms of not just looking down at where am I right at this moment, but look to the horizon and look to a better day, look to stronger relationships with your existing clients. And the way that you get there is by focusing on trust over transactions. If you've got small businesses who have made it to this point right here on November 4th, 2020, they already trust your transactional expertise. They're already benefiting from that. I think what has changed and probably will stay stable for at least a near to midterm is that there will be an increasing focus on, can I trust you in more than just transactions, right? And are you a trusted partner of mine? And I think for many of you, the answer is emphatically yes, right? That's what you've been to your clients. And I would really say, make sure to take every opportunity to frame your discussions with them in that way. All right, so now we've got an audience, we've got a sense of how we want to message to them as well, and what perhaps has changed in that. The next step is to think about how exactly do we reach them? What do we put in front of them from a marketing perspective? And generally speaking, if you're working in a firm, you have two ways of going about this. One is services marketing, which is you market and promote the services that you offer, right? You're basically promoting what you sell. The other option is content marketing. And in content marketing, rather than pointing to your price list and saying, here's why I'm great at X, Y, and Z, and why I would be a great fit with your needs, what you're really promoting is what you know. You're putting out there to prospective clients and to clients, here's what I know, and I want to share this with you so that you can become better informed and be able to run your practice better as well. So we'll look at examples of what you can do in these areas, but I'd like to go ahead, Tom, if you want to go ahead and bring up the next poll question. I'd like to get a better sense of the main organizational challenges that you're facing right now.
Absolutely, Div. Let me just get that poll question up for everybody. All right, and let's launch it. Okay, folks. The third poll is asking, my organization's primary marketing challenge is to educate my audience, create awareness about our firm, convert prospects to customers, and sustain and upsell customers. And once again, all of these are required for CPE credit. Also, folks, I just want to say, when I was doing the first poll question, I had said the webinar would be on a Wednesday. It is not. It is on Thursday, November 12th. That was just me misspeaking. So the webinar that we discussed in the opening slide by Stephen Brewer is going to be on Thursday, November 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. All right, let's just make sure we get all of these answers in here. We're about 90%. We're just going to give it another 10 to 20 seconds here. All righty. And we're seeing it come in. And we are going once, going twice. And let's close these out right now and share those results, Div. So my organization's primary marketing challenge is to 15% said educate my audience. About even, 32 and 31% of people said create awareness for our firm and convert prospects to customers, and 22% said sustain and upsell customers.
Great. So the results in a lot of ways are what I expected. The second and third options, awareness and conversion, are pretty consistently the top two options that I hear when I ask this question. More of you selected sustain and upsell customers and educate my audience than I typically get back, which is great. We're going to talk about the value of educating your audience. You know, a lot of times I think accountants think that there might be a sort of breaking point or limitation in terms of how much you can educate your prospects and your clients. And I think sometimes there's actually a little bit of a reluctance to do it because there's a fear that if I educate my audience, well, then what are they going to come to me for, right? They're going to want to do it themselves. And the consistent finding in B2B content marketing has been that actually the opposite ends up being true. When you educate your audience and make them aware of your expertise and that you're helping them address their needs even better, that actually solidifies the relationship with you and makes them more likely to stay with you in the long term as well. So, so great to see that some of you have that as a primary goal, and no surprise at all that awareness, conversion, and maintaining and upselling customer relationships is critical as well. So moving back to this, I want to talk about sort of how we can frame the content that we have to offer and the education that we have to offer at every single stage of our marketing. And so on the left-hand side here, this downward pyramid is originally from a company called Single Grain, and I've gone ahead and sort of customized this for the needs of accounting firms. So when you're at the awareness level, this is when a customer or prospect is experiencing a pain point, but they haven't quite recognized yet the specific problem that they're trying to solve, right? So there is something wrong, but forget about looking for solutions. They're not even sure yet what the specific problem is, right? And they probably need help in being able to identify and pinpoint what is that specific problem that I'm trying to solve. So some of the tactics that you can use to help at the awareness level are articles that you can write, and those can be articles that you then go ahead and publish on your site or send out through email, etc. Your ads as well. You know, when you post an ad, part of what you're doing is getting your audience to look at the top of that ad, look at your headline, and say, aha, they understand what I'm going through right now, right? That there's this level of understanding and connection there, and this level of identification there. Paid search, so we'll talk a little bit more about Google ads in the future, but if people are searching for a solution to a problem or saying what the problem is and trying to articulate that in a search engine, one of the things that you have the opportunity to do is to anticipate what it is that they might be having a problem with, right? And then be able to respond to that within the search window there. And then finally, webinars like this one, right? Some of you have attended today's webinar because you have specific pain points or you're not sure what to do next, which is its own kind of pain point, right? Then we get one level down from there, which is interest. And we define interest here as your prospects or customers now understand what their problem is, and they're actively looking for information on how to solve it. And the key word there is actively. They're in information gathering mode here. So the number one tool or tactic by far at this level is your firm's website. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a couple minutes here, and a couple of things to focus on there. But I definitely encourage you to think about your website as being your way of addressing that information gathering challenge that your prospects or customers are currently facing. Social media does the same thing. I'm sure you've got folks, if you are on social media, I'm sure you've got folks who are following you on social media who are your customers. And this can be a way for them to stay abreast of what's happening at your firm and for you to connect with them. There are also probably people who are not yet your customers, but are paying attention to you, and they're interested in what you have to say. And what you have to say can match up with the information that they're looking to gather there as well. Your email newsletters, I think, you know, the number one thing that sending out a periodic email newsletter can do is to anticipate and provide the information that a prospect or customer may need at any given point. And then finally, blog posts as well. We'll talk a little bit more about how to produce longer form written content like blog posts. But part of what you're looking to do if you run a blog is to be able to educate with information that helps to solve a problem that's been identified here. Next up, desire. This is desire for a solution, right? So we are now no longer in information gathering, we are actually honing in on a solution. And the most important thing here is to make sure that your firm is part of that evaluation process, right? So if they're looking for payroll within your city, or if they're looking for an accounting and tax firm that specializes in construction clients, right? Whatever it might be, you want to make sure that you're demonstrating, hey, we should be considered as a part of your evaluation there. So what you want to do here is write things that provide enough detail that they deliver comfort to your target audience that you really know what you're talking about. So if you're marketing to, for example, the construction industry and clients within that industry, right, your brochure should be specifically speaking that language and should be specifically addressing the needs and requirements and challenges of that particular industry or vertical. If you want to produce a ebook or a white paper, and these can be short, these can be as short as 3 pages, but if you have something to say that is useful to people within that industry or your region or your city, or however you're defining your target audience, this is a great opportunity for you to show, hey, I'm really qualified in this particular area. I understand your needs. Here's my way of anticipating those. And based on that, we should have a conversation. And then finally, the action phase. This is when the customer or prospect is ready to say yes. That can be saying yes to a purchase. That can be saying yes to being upsold. So whatever it might be, you need to provide them with validation that you're the right choice. And the most compelling way to do that is to get them to self-identify. So most successful websites at this point have either case studies or testimonials or both on them, especially in service industries. What we're trying to do here is to show examples of clients that we served in the past who were just like you, the prospect who's considering us today, right? We want to demonstrate that we have solved the problems of firms that are like yours, of small business owners that are like you, right? We get you, and we've already done this before, and we can do it for you as well. So let's talk a little bit about some channels and tactics, and I'll go through this next section pretty quickly here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those afterwards as well. Website, lots of information out there about what you can do better on your website. There's a couple of things that I want you to focus on that I think sometimes are a little bit undersold or underrated in terms of your website. The first one is you want to think about what are the 3 to 4 key questions that your target audience comes to your site for, okay? So I can tell you right now, one of those questions is, how do I get a hold of you, right? That is one of the most common reasons that prospects and customers will show up to a company's website, right? And it's amazing how many firms don't have their contact information clearly indicated either on their homepage or just one click away from there, right? Then also, what do you do and why is that different than every other firm like you? That's a common question that your target audience is coming to your site for as well, right? And then there's potentially others as well that you hear consistently. The answers to those questions should be no less than 60 seconds away. So if you show your website to somebody who's never been to your site before, can they get answers to the most important few questions within 60 seconds? Nobody sticks around a website longer than 60 seconds if they feel that they're not getting the answers that they're looking for. If the information is too ambiguous, too general, or is going in a different direction than what they were anticipating, they're simply going to abandon. Other point I would mention is around 50% of your traffic these days is probably coming from mobile devices. Some of you probably over 50%, some maybe a little bit under, but that percentage will continue to rise. And so you want to be prepared for that. And the most important part of that is to make sure that your site is what's called mobile responsive, to make sure that it looks good and performs well on mobile as well. And there are a number of tools that can help you to identify that. There's a tool called Website Grader. You can go to grader.website or just search for Website Grader. It's a tool created by HubSpot. And you can, for free, run your company's website through that. And it will give you a sense of both technically how your website is doing, but also, are you doing well in terms of handling mobile requests and making sure that your homepage works well as well. So in terms of current impact, things that are more pertinent right now, I would encourage you to think about having a web page about your response to current times, whether you think about current times as being your response to COVID or local or regional economic impacts or whatever it might be. I know many of you already have that. Some of you may feel that that's no longer relevant. It's possible that it's still relevant for you to have that page, but that the content on there needs to change. Many of your clients now are not coming to your site in emergency mode. They're now coming from a little bit more of something in between normal and emergency, right? And so as they're in that transitionary period, you may need to update your content to reflect whatever it is that you want to say there for that. Link to that page from your homepage and also from your social media if you have social media accounts. next up, let's talk a little bit about digital advertising. So in general, digital advertising has not changed dramatically in the finance and accounting space in 2020 in terms of either its efficiency or its effectiveness. I've got a couple of charts there from Gartner research about what's happened over the course of this year in terms of average cost per click on different digital advertising places like Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, and then also what's happened with the average click-through rate as well. Changed a little bit over the course of the year, but generally has been pretty consistently where it was at the beginning of this year. So what I would say you want to be focusing on is to get people with intent to notice you at the right time. That's really the goal of digital advertising, right? That's really what we're trying to do here. And I want to talk in particular about if you're not doing any digital advertising, if you're not doing online ads right now, the two places you probably want to think about starting are Google Ads and Facebook ads. In Google Ads, you win on intent, meaning the way that you win on Google Ads is if somebody is searching for a company like you and you show up there as a paid advertisement when they do their search, right? So for every major service you offer, you want to create an ad group in Google Ads, a separate ad group, so that you can control your spend for each of those separately and see how they're doing. So if you offer full range of services, tax, audit, accounting, and payroll, you want to go ahead and have a separate ad group for each of those major areas. If you are if you provide payroll and HR, you want to potentially have a separate ad group for each of those. Start with a small number of keywords. And there's a couple ways you could do this. One is, so keywords is what is somebody searching on where I should show up in their results, right? So a simple one is payroll in Poughkeepsie, New York. Assuming you're in Poughkeepsie, New York, right? You want to certainly show up to that if you're a payroll company in Poughkeepsie, New York. Or it could be something like, you know, help with an audit for whatever industry, right? That may be an example of something that you want to show up for, or professional tax services for small businesses in Los Angeles, California, right? Or in your neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. So you can define how specific or broad you want that to be based on what you tend to hear from your client interactions or prospect interactions in terms of what they're looking for. There's also something called the Google Keyword Planner. Ironically, the best way to find that is to Google it. So if you Google for Google Keyword Planner, you'll be able to get to this tool. You need to have a Google account, but the use of the planner is completely free. And it's a way for you to figure out in your specific industry, for your type of firm, in your geographic area, what are some keywords that it might make sense for you to bid on, and how much should you potentially bid on that as well. Then you can add on what are called location extensions. So if you are only interested in people in your city or in your region, you add on location extensions, and then Google will only show your ads in your particular area. Very simple to go ahead and add on. Increases your cost a little bit, but obviously makes you much better targeted as well, so that's good. I don't suggest playing around with your bidding too much at the beginning. Google will give you a suggested bid. Just use theirs to start with, run it for a month or so, see how it works, and then you can adjust upward or downward depending on how you're performing at that point. And the most important thing is focus, 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 right? You're not trying to be all things to all people who are searching for anything related to finance and accounting, right? You're trying to be in the places that are in your wheelhouse where you can really dominate and win. Facebook advertising is less about intent and it's more about targeting. So when people are on Facebook or on other websites that partner with Facebook and allow Facebook to serve ads back to them, they don't necessarily have an intent to find an accounting firm at that time or a payroll firm. What you're doing is basically finding them yourself. It's more proactive, and Facebook ads offers unparalleled targeting options, right? So whatever you might want, specific industries, people within very specific geographic areas, people who are small business owners, people with a certain amount of professional experience, right? However you want to define that. Facebook is well set up to handle any combination of those factors that you might be interested in, right? What I would say is you can use a similar strategy to Google. Facebook will help you through that process, give you initial bidding and budget strategies as well. I tend to encourage people to start more conservatively on Facebook ads because it's a little bit less predictable. There's more variance in your performance on Facebook ads, generally speaking, than there is on Google ads. So I encourage you to start slower, start more conservatively, and then you can always build up in terms of bidding more aggressively for impressions and clicks, and also just increasing your budget as you start to see a return on your investment there as well. Last point on Facebook ads, there's something called lookalike audiences, which can be a really big win for you. So if you've got a significant database, and this doesn't just have to be your customers, it can be customers and prospects as well. If you have a pretty significant sized database, you can upload that to Facebook, and they will match those people. They'll find those people on Facebook by a combination of email address and other factors that you can upload. Name, email address, phone number, etc. And then they will find other people who are like those people, right? So if you're uploading small businesses within a certain geo area, Facebook will do a very good job of finding other businesses like that within that same geo area. If you're uploading a long list of people within a specific industry, Facebook will do a great job of extending that and being able to find other people within that industry as well. So it's a way to extend the value of your customer and prospect database and be able to find other people. Now, the lookalike audience is anonymous to you unless they raise their hand and they click on one of your ads. So you don't get a list that you can download and then start marketing to them, because those people haven't asked you to do that. But if they see your ad and they click on it, now they are part of your audience on Facebook, and you can continue to market to them from there. All right, we've got just a few minutes left. I've got a couple of slides left to go through here. Email and content, the big thing I'd say here is just the demise of email has been greatly exaggerated. Email continues to perform very well. People like receiving targeted offers in their email. The key there is targeted and relevant, right? We all hate getting junk email. We all, generally speaking, like getting things that are timely and relevant to our needs. So you want to use content and your website to build up your email list. I definitely encourage you to have somewhere on your website that people can sign up to be added to your mailing list as well, both on your homepage and elsewhere. And then you can deliver fresh content to your list to keep them coming back. So all the things that you know, you can go ahead and deliver to them. We'll talk more about content in just a minute. The key here with email is frequency is more important than perfection. You don't need to create the perfect email. It doesn't really matter that much. Your customers and prospects want to hear from you. If they don't, they probably aren't really prospects of yours. So sending it out on a regular cadence, whether it's every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is that you decide is best for your audience, stick to that as much as possible. So in terms of content, you want to talk about topics that are at the intersection of your expertise and your client's needs, right? So what are the things that you're passionate about and well educated about that are also relevant to your audience in terms of clients and prospects as well? And you want to make it really easily digestible. Top 10 tips for such and such. Top 10 strategies for tax planning for 2021, right? Whatever it might be. 5 figures you should know right now. A case study of a business that is representative of what you can offer to your clients, right? That's a great way to let other customers know what you're able to offer, the full range of services that you can offer, and the impact that they can have as well. One thing I'll mention is you can also outsource this. There are many good content writers out there who can interview you and then translate that into marketing ready content. So you just simply talk to them about things that you know really well, and then they'll turn that into content. Usually only cost a few $100s all in per piece of content that you produce. You can use that on email, you can use it on social media, on your website, etc. And it's something that continues to pay dividends in the long run. Biggest thing in terms of current impact, the tone of your content is more critical than ever. I really encourage you to look at everything you put out from a messaging perspective, whether it's emails, the tone of your website, the tone of your social media, and make sure that it's as patient and understanding and explanatory as possible, right? People don't need more high pressure. They don't need to feel more stressed. What they're looking for is somebody who comes to them, who meets them in an environment of calm, and that calm gives you more professional credibility there. Social media, great for distributing content, great for thought leadership. It's not really about direct lead generation. I don't know of too many firms who find that social media is their #1 way of getting new leads, or even their #2 way of doing it. It can be a good supplement to other things that you're doing, and it can amplify your message. But I would really think about it more from the perspective of how do I get content out to people who are interested in the messages that I have. And really, I think that's what's most important. Right now, more than ever, focus less on you and more on them. In other words, use social media less as an advertisement for you and more as communicating information and resources that can be helpful to your target audience. I think that's a good rule to follow at any time, but the research that I've seen in marketing journals recently is that that's even more important right at this moment. All right, so at this point, we'll go ahead and load our final poll question. So Tom, if you could go ahead and load that.
Sounds good, Div. And let's get that last polling question loaded here, and we'll launch that for everybody. And I see the most marketing value for us in working on our website, digital ads, email and content strategy, and social media. So we'll see some answers from that coming in. Once again, folks, these are required for CPE, and this is the last of the 4 polling questions for today. Alrighty. And we have about 87% have voted here. Just going to wait just a couple of more seconds. Alrighty. You have 90% going once, going twice, and let's close those and share those results. All right, so Div, our attendees today, they see the most marketing value in working on their website at 39%, at 36% email and content strategy, and then at 14 and 11% respectively, digital ads and social media.
Yep, that's great. And in fact, the percentages that came in here are basically the order in which I would encourage you to do this. So if you have not looked at your website in a long time or changed your website in a long time, or if there are clear glaring mistakes based on what we discussed earlier, that's the place to focus on first. And then I think from there, email and content strategy is a great second step to go to. Once those 2 houses are in order, that's the perfect time to then go to digital ads and social media as well. I think digital ads I think of digital ads as they raise your ceiling, but they don't necessarily do anything for your floor. So in other words, if you're not performing well right now, you want to get your house in order first before you go ahead and do digital advertising and bring brand new people in there. Great, so I'm thrilled to hear that. I think that's very much in line with what I see from other firms as well. And that's all I've got for today. So I want to thank you for your time today. If you've got any questions for me, specifically about marketing for your firm or anything else that you'd like to reach out to me about, please feel free to get a hold of me. I'm at dbhansali@accountantsworld.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Div Bhansali. Just search for Div Bhansali there. I'm active on LinkedIn as well. Look forward to hearing from you in the future, and thanks so much for your time today.
All right, Div, thank you so much for that terrific presentation. I'm just going to take back presenter controls here. All righty. And let me share my screen here, and we will finish up the presentation here today. All righty. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Div, that was a terrific presentation. I even learned some things about marketing in that presentation. I'm the one that looked it over. We do have 2 more expert webinars left here in 2020. The next one will be taking place on December 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and is titled "What Me Worry? Actions and Ideas to Help Minimize Cybersecurity Threats in a Post-COVID World," and that it will be done by Michael Sipe. He is the security consultant and project manager for Witham Cyber. We've had many of our friends from Witham Cyber do presentations for us in the past, and they have been chock full of interesting information and at times maybe some frightening information about cybersecurity, but it's definitely something that you're going to want to hear about, especially since accountants handle so much of the bookkeeping and finance work for their clients. So that will be something that you definitely want to register for and join us for. And you could sign up for this and the last two webinars at 2020webinars.com. Thank you, Div, again, and thank you everybody for joining us today, and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye now.